They announced a lot of content in the upcoming roadmap. You can see all of the stuff that we're getting through the next 4 months here. The thing that I want to focus on is this little thing here, the balance adjustments, because I think this is kind of interesting. Despite previously saying that they would not be nerfing units after the game launched, they said that they're going to be nerfing units. And this is just due to how strong some of the launch units have gotten. I'll be going over which units are probably getting buffed, which units are probably getting nerfed, besides the ones that they explicitly mentioned, because they did also say that the ones they mentioned are only some of the units that are getting buffed slash nerfed. And then we'll also talk about why I think these nerfs are kind of necessary. That's not the only thing that's necessary, though, because if you are spending on Chaos Zero Nightmare, then you need to be getting your discounts from Loot Bar. No matter what you're looking to pick up, Loot Bar provides it fast, secure, and at a more affordable price, with 24/7 customer service and refunds guaranteed. If you haven't gotten your double crystals yet, applying it on Loot Bar can save you up to $30 if it's your first purchase. Loot Bar has been providing deals for games for years, giving them over 30,000 reviews on Trustpilot with an average rating of 4.9. New users can currently get 2 coupons for an additional 12% and 8% off their purchases, so make sure to click on the link below and sign up now. So first, let's quickly go over all of the balance adjustment stuff. Every 12 weeks, which is the length of a season, when we get a new season, we'll be getting balance adjustments, and this is going to be changing a bunch of stuff. So stuff like, they're going to mention it here, the unpopular epiphanies and common cards, just some characters just don't have like epiphanies that get picked. Like Hugo, a lot of his epiphanies make the card worse. I think it's kind of bad that we want to target a generic epiphany over most of his epiphanies on his Hunting Instincts, I think was the name card, whichever one gives him his stacks. That is one of the ones that I hope gets looked at. And structure for certain epiphany builds, they've mentioned this before, with Yuki wanting to give her a single target build as well, instead of just directly buffing her. Buffing heals for controllers, so that's Nia or the Cassius Ray, just so that we have a bit more variety in the characters used besides just Mika whenever you want healing. And then this is the thing that they mentioned with Yuki, some low utilization builds, just giving characters more build paths, which kind of lines in with like the whole character cards. Partner passive effects they've mentioned before as well. This is just 3 stars being so ridiculously strong with their attack percent passive, which they're aware of, and we've seen some adjustments with Pekko and Itsugu both having attack percent passives as well. So here we're at the nerfs, which is the key point of this video that I want to talk about. Certain combatants will be reworked from a long-term game perspective, and this just means that these characters are a little bit too broken. The characters they mention in the video are Cassius and Tressa, but they only say some. So this means, or it at least implies, that more characters besides Cassius and Tressa will get nerfed. Now, for the nerfs, they are aware that like this might make the characters worse, and they're going to implement some sort of way to retrieve growth currency, which is standard. This is how they handle it in their other game. Whenever they nerf, you get your stuff back. So let's talk about why these nerfs are kind of needed, and also who else besides Cassius and Tressa might get nerfed. So they covered both Tressa and Cassius in the video, and while Tressa does have some things that make her really, really strong, I think Cassius is the bigger offender here. For anybody not familiar, we'll go over Cassius real quick. The way he works is you just have the Popeye Popper, and you get to, well, one of the epiphanies is you can pick which quest you want, with 000 being the strongest one, because cost 0 means that you don't have to spend any AP, and you can, well, obviously you can play a lot more 0 cost cards than you can 1 cost cards, and this one you have to play 0, 1, 2. That's a minimum of 3 AP to play this quest, and then this one, while technically you could play 0 cost cards for all combatants, this one doesn't care who you play. And the 000 reward is to deal a ton of damage. Also, increasing damage for every attack card used this turn. The thing about 0 cost cards is there are a lot of characters that can generate a ton of 0 cost cards. Like Tressa, for example, which we'll get into in a little bit later, and most recently released unit Strenial, she plays a lot of 0 cost cards, because every single time you Ravage, all your homing lasers go back into your hand, and they're all 0 cost cards. You're spamming like tens of 0 cost cards every single turn, and you just get a bunch of triple zeros. Also, one of his epiphanies on Dice Trick gives you a random quest card when you complete your quest. So with 4 copies, suddenly you have 5 quest cards. The one that you select, which is triple zero, and then 4 random ones. And beyond that, he still has like good cards, because Devil Dice is a good card, Joker is good, and then of the random quest cards that you can get, like, they're all fine. Like, triple zero is really good, straight, great, more morale. Full House, draw 1, fantastic for cycling through your deck. You can play your entire hand every single turn with decent RNG, and then triple zero is okay. Another thing is that in his potential, the final one here, every single time you complete a quest, you get 1 morale for 1 turn. The fortitude doesn't matter. But this is just crazy, because besides straight, you get morale just for completing a quest, you start stacking a ton of morale for completing your quests. And with the characters that can generate all these 0-cost cards, this is why Cassius deals a ridiculous amount of damage. Like, the nerfs that I expect are probably unique on the Dice Trick upgrade first. I would also expect them to maybe cap this, not like an infinite amount of morale that you can get from the quests, or potentially just some adjustment to the quests themselves. The ability for him to just play this many cards is really what makes him so ridiculously strong, because he does damage and he keeps on ramping morale, and plus he heals a little bit too. There's really a lot of things that just contribute to him being so strong. So now let's take a look at Tressa. Tressa, her thing is just the shadow reloads. When healed by a skill card, create 1 Shadow Dagger, and this is pretty strong by itself, because this makes her consistency really, really good, is what I like about Shadow Reload. It makes it so that it's really hard to have a dead turn, because even if you draw a heal card, like, you draw 5 cards, you don't like get any other draw, you have a bunch of heal cards. This is 4 Shadow Daggers, this is 4 Shadow Daggers, these are all 4 Shadow Daggers. And then you also get to keep her own heal card. This is 4 Shadow Daggers, suddenly it's a ton of damage. So this is super, super strong. Maybe they'll like make this, this is not a unique card, this is a visual glitch that happens when you try to take decks into the new Great Rift, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But being able to generate 4 Shadow Daggers no matter what is pretty strong. I actually don't really know if this warrants a proper nerf, because I think the bigger issue is the way she synergizes with Cassius, because Cassius, you play a heal card, 4 Shadow Daggers, that's 1 quest complete. That's 1.33 quests complete. This means that every single time you play a heal card, you're completing 1.33 quests. And the previous Great Rift team with Tressa, Cassius, and Mika, this is a lot of, this is like, just looking at here, I have 8 heal cards here. This is like 10, I think, quests completed, 10.66 quests completed, which is like 50 quest cards. So you can see how that's kind of a problem. So these are the 2 characters that they mentioned are getting nerfed. Why I think these nerfs are needed is because really, it's just too strong. Like, there's no way for any characters to really outdo this team comp unless they do a bunch of weird stuff to heavily restrict it. Because what does Mika, Tressa, Cassius not do? It has card draw. Dice Trick hitting Full House gives you a bunch of card draw. If you're talking about damage, this team comp does the most damage in a single turn. Like, yeah, triple zero scales to like thousands of damage eventually, and then it does a bunch of hits. It's a ton of damage. Even if you give like a bunch of fortitude to the enemies, because triple zero hits thousands of damage, it still has like the highest, maybe not the highest, maybe I don't know if it's the highest, but it's like very, very big single nukes. This team also does that. This team has a ton of healing. It does everything, which is problematic. It also has a bunch of shielding, because Tressa and Cassius are both exhausting a billion cards and you can get Psionic Combat Suit for shield too. Like, there's just too much that this team comp does, and there's not really any good way to solve it without implementing heavy restrictions, which is what happens when you go to the current Rift. If you go to the current Rift, you'll see this mechanic here, where it says, for the rearguard battle, all but one copy of upgrade cards with the same name will be removed, and the remaining cards will have unique applied to them. And that's what you saw with the Tressa earlier, where if you look at my Tressa's save data, that's why this says unique, is because I brought this into the Rift second half. And this is insanely restrictive, because sure, Tressa and Cassius can't be used. There was another thing that's not shown there, but the boss just kills you if you heal. If you heal too many times, the boss just straight up kills you in the second phase, which means that you can't use really any sort of healing in that second phase. And that restricts you from using a lot of any characters that heal, really. But the upgrade thing, besides Cassius and Tressa, like, I would say the main unit that gets hurt by this is Beryl, because her opening found build is really, really strong. And the really funny thing is that they literally buffed this. This got buffed in the last patch. They made it so that elasticity, when you fire off 20 shots with opening found, does not affect it. And she's not usable in the second half, which is the important half, because you're only going to be able to play one opening found. So Beryl is just randomly getting hit by this as a side casualty, and then, funnily enough, Serenial somewhat gets hit by this, just because I think if you decide to pick up the Shining Core, this one, because theoretically this Shining Core upgrade is kind of the same thing as duping a homing laser, so it would make your like copies a little bit more consistent, because you could dupe either one, but really you can't, because you can only have one copy of an upgrade in the run. And this also does shut out some other builds where, let's say you wanted to have, well, I guess this also works as an example, if you wanted to have two different versions of a card, so like one of Shining Core 3 and one of Shining Core 5, you wouldn't be able to do that either. So this upgrade restriction really just hits a ton of units. Needing that level of restriction to make it so that Cassius and Tressa don't just obliterate everything is going to limit a lot of team comps. Like, I think not having Beryl be usable on that second half is pretty sad. And then I mentioned that I think Cassius is the bigger problem compared to Tressa, and this is pretty prevalent when you just go take a look at the rankings. Like, it's Cassius. It's Cassius all the way down. He's doing a billion damage because I mentioned that Serenial, when you Ravage, gets all of her homing lasers back, and Selena can refresh the tenacity, so she's playing just like a billion homing lasers every single turn. And then Cassius, even though you only have one dice trick, you're still getting to play a ton of quest cards, a bunch of morale, everybody's damage goes up, and Cassius as 000 will still hit massive damage numbers. So that's why, like, it's really just Cassius. That's the big problem here, I think. His kit is just a little bit too good. So yeah, I don't mind that they're nerfing things. They're going to be refunding resources from what they said, so we should be getting our investment back at least. And they mentioned that this is for long-term whatever. Like, yes, Cassius is a little bit too strong. I think it's fine if they decide to nerf him so that we don't have to play these infinite turn like things every single boss, because these fights take like hours in the second half just because of how many cards we're playing. And then besides Tressa and Cassius, who else is getting nerfed? Because they mentioned that some other characters might get nerfed. The only characters I think are really in that, I don't think anybody else really needs to be nerfed, but the characters that I think they might look at is Meilin and Veronica. I think are the only two characters that really are in that has something, or in that strong enough to maybe be nerfed here. Meilin, I think, is one specific card, this one. For each passion card used, one extra hit, and there are some very funny combos you can do with this. This is why the bosses have elasticity, where you can only do 7 hits before the damage starts scaling down until it hits 1. Especially with this combined with Spirit of the Armada, just becomes so absurdly strong. Unity of attack and defense is 3 passion cards because your strikes are 0 cost too. And then Veronica has a bunch of 0 cost cards of her own, and she has some other funny builds that enable the Rising Dragonspire even more. You can get up to like 50 hits on this if you really tried. This just sort of uncapped massive nuke is definitely something that they're aware of, as we can see with the elasticity buff. And that's why I think Meilin might be on the table, or at least this specific card might be on the table, or they might decide to nerf Unity a little bit instead, make it like 1 basic card or something. That does not sound very good. We'll see what they do. And then Veronica, I also don't think really needs nerfs, but she is probably the strongest like draw character. Repose is a very, very good card. I'm just gonna say I don't think she needs nerfs. It's just she's the strongest like sub DPS. So if they're gonna look at anybody besides Tressa, Cassius, and Meilin, it probably will be Veronica. There's really no other characters that warrant any sort of nerfs, unless they're really that concerned about Mika being a massive AP battery. This is not even like the good one. The good one is this 2 cost, the 2 AP one with draw. Divine Epiphany is the good one, though I don't think they really need to worry that much about Mika, because Mika's kind of mostly just a chaos unit. So that's it for the nerfs. Like, I do think these nerfs are necessary. For buffs, they've mentioned Yuki, they've mentioned all the controllers need their healing boosted a little bit. I think they're really just going to try and make it so that some of the unplayed 5 stars get played a little bit more. Like, it's kind of hard to say because of the way content in this game works, right? It's mainly going to be based around Rift, and the rest of the content isn't that hard. But I think there's, like, they could buff anybody, really. Like, Magna definitely needs some sort of boost, I think, and we'll see what Spiral Tower of Screams does for her, since they mentioned that's Vanguard focused. And I think Haru kind of is just a little bit underwhelming. People have complained a lot about Chizuru too. I just also do think the way content works in this game is a little bit weird in terms of how much you need these characters. I guess just need them in general. For 4 stars like Amir, Owen are just not really used, besides by people who really want to use them. That's it for this video. It's really just talking about the upcoming buffs and nerfs, and why, or besides who is getting buffs and nerfs, why these nerfs are kind of needed.